I'm truly honored to introduce a visionary leader, passionate advocate for the arts, and creative force in the world of media and philanthropy, and dear friend, Jarl Mohn. Jarl is best known for his stress-pervaded leadership at NPR, where his work expanded the network's reach, strengthened its financial foundation, and deepened its cultural impact. But beyond his achievements in media, MTV and media entertainment, to name a few, Jarl has always been deeply engaged with the arts. His personal commitment to fostering creative expression, supporting artists, and promoting the importance of culture is truly inspiring. Jarl's connection to the arts runs deep, from his role as a patron and collector to his long-standing support for museums, galleries, and institutions across the country, but especially in a place he calls home, Los Angeles. His commitment to LA can be seen with the Mohn Award he and his wife Pamela established with the Hair Museum, and more recently, the announcement of a major gift of 260 artworks by Los Angeles-based artists dubbed the Mohn Art Collective, a joint gift that entails the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Hammer, and the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles. Jarl truly understands the power of art to connect us, to spark important conversations, and to shape our world in meaningful ways. Tonight, as we come together in this space, surrounded by the works of some of the most intuitive and influential artists of our time, it is only fitting that we hear from someone who not only championed creativity in his professional life, but also lives and breathes it in his personal passions. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jarl Mohn.
And Fan, thank you for helping arrange this for the Columbia Business School alumni. But so great that all your folks are here. Then organized some of the art in this gallery. We have this beautiful poster up here. And then Peter Alexander on the wall, that red piece, Los Angeles artist who just passed away recently. And then behind me, Mary Course, and I don't know if you got here early enough to go down to the second floor and see her new work, which is pretty remarkable, including the halo. And if you didn't have a chance to see it, I would encourage you to come back. And they're going to let you actually stand very close to the wall, where normally, if you got that close to a work of art, they taser you. But they're letting you here, you can see your own halo. And I got a call from Mary Course this afternoon. She left me a little voicemail message to remind me to tell everybody that artists are where we connect with our souls. And this work that she has, where you stand in the halo, you can see your halo. So thank you for having us. And thank you for putting this art on for us as well.
Yes, thank you, Ben, for your introduction, and thank you for making this happen. And we're really very happy to have you, and especially fly from Los Angeles to join us. As many of people here might attend our previous event, our art committee is really bringing together leaders like you from art business world to share your stories, and also to serve as a community for all of you. To build meaningful connections. And when we brainstorm, you suggested your MisAdventures as our topic, and you've been very open and willing to share the call to your adventure in your childhood. That can be very open about your family struggles, and including the experiencing ending up in foster care home. How did you overcome that experience?
Okay, can everybody hear us okay?
Yeah.
Great. Excellent. Like my experience in the foster care system, I was in the foster care system for a couple of years, about 2 years with my sisters in a group home. I think it's probably was more of the thing that ever occurred to me, that happened to me. I didn't remember how much I hated it, and how much I was saying to myself, and which is kind of my mantra. When I went in at 11, 12 years old, and no matter what happened, when I returned 18, I wasn't going to let anything like that happen to me again. Of course, like everybody has heard me find out that but you don't control those things. Life goes up, and problems find their way to you. But I get asked, we do some programs for foster youth, and LA County, and I had a chance to talk to them actually what they call transition age, those that are have aged out of the system. They're 18 to 24 years old, and they asked about trauma and PTSD, and each one of them has kind of a different piece of language, word to describe. And they say, how did you deal with it? And I said, I think a mental health professional would not approve of the way I dealt with it. And it was total escapism and delusion. And that's what drew me to radio, which became my career, and it was my kind of escape mechanism. And in the world of music and in the world of radio, I could get away from this horrible life that I had. So maybe not the best thing to do for mental health, but it got me from point A to point B.
Thank you. So our radio saved you in your darkest moment, and in a way also inspired you with a sense of purpose to get into radio as a career. And it means you spent 20 years in radio. Could you share some stories it's a lot of up and downs and your stories, including your time in New York in the 70s and
there are a lot of stories that can't tell in public. But those are the ones you want. But it was a great adventure. I started working in radio when I was 15, and I worked at a little radio station in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. It was a daytime AM radio station, and my job was to run the religious tapes on the weekend. I got paid $1.10 an hour to be on the God Squad, and I got to do the top of the hour ID, which I thought was the greatest thing in the world, and in my 15-year-old voice. And I didn't sound 15. I sounded 12. I sounded like Minnie Mouse. I would practice all half hour, and then the tape would end, and I'd say, in my deepest voice, "What are you doing so Simon?" And I can just start the next preacher. And then I worked my way up. And again, I remained delusional. I remember I listened to tapes now I had from when I was 15, and I was strifeful. I had a Philadelphia accent, which it took me a long time to get rid of. If I have a couple of drinks in me, it kind of resurfaces. But my voice was really high. But I ended up moving from station to station, Wilmington, Delaware, Indianapolis, Louisville, Miami. Ended up here working at WNBC when I was 25. So as they did, kind of worked out, and then I got into the cable TV business. And then years later, 2014, I went back to radio when I took the CEO job at NPR.
Yeah. What do you mean by delusional? What's your definition of delusional? Is it all negative or it's...
I had myself convinced I was really great. That was delusional. I was really terrible. I ultimately got a little better, but I always thought I was way better than I was. I was in this little radio station in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and playing records, and I would listen to, we call them ear checks, when we take your performance on the air and you go back and listen to it later. It's almost idiotical to do call it like a critique. And I would critique my own tapes or listen to them, and I would listen to guys on the air in New York, and I would say, I'm every bit as good as that guy, which is totally, if that's not delusion, I don't know what is. I was very worth it. I'm better than that guy. I'll be there by the time I'm 20, but by the time I was 25, I was good enough to be working here, but that was delusion pushed me forward. If I'd really been realistic about how bad I was, I would have never applied for any of those jobs. I'd still be running religious tapes in Doylestown.
Thank you. It sounds can be very positive as well. So you revolutionized MTV at VH1 and then went on to create entertainment television. It's like a victory on your resume, but actually there's a lot of drama and misadventures. To share some of the stories that in this career as milestones?
A lot of misadventures. That's right. A lot of misadventures. When I got hired to run MTV, Tom Preston who was chairman of the company at the time, said, "Congratulations, you've just been elected mayor of Beirut." And he gave me one of the best management pieces of advice I ever had. It was an incredibly creative, creative, free-form type of environment. And I said, "What advice can you give me?" He said, "Manage it just enough to get it on the air." And that is, we tried to do that with everything that we've done.
And tell us about how you started to become the founding president and CEO of E-Entertainment, and how you did the branding and it became really iconic.
It was an accident. I'd love to tell you there was a lot of great strategic vision here. In fact, in the audience we had Dale Hopkins. Dale, could you raise your hand? Dale was our chief marketing officer at E for many years, and started in ad sales and then took over in marketing. But when I ended up taking the job, it used to be Movie Time years ago, and I'd been approached by a recruiter when I was at MTV to see if I'd be interested in the CDO job there. And at the time, Movie Time, there's no nice way of saying it, was a piece of crap. And it was a really failed business. And I said, why would I ever leave MTV to do that job? And then, of course, nature has its way of intervening. And I got fired from MTV for putting Andrew play in the video years. I was telling somebody the story today. He promised he's going to behave himself. I'm a universal amphitheater. I'm in the third row. I'm looking at him. I'm making eye contact with him. He promised he was going to be a good boy. And he was behind. Totally behind. There was no reaction from the audience. And you could see that split-second decision in his eye. You could see it. And he paused for a second and said, "Hickory dickory dock." Oh my God. And my life flashed before me. And that cost me my job. And we ended up having the highest ratings we'd ever had in the Video Years Awards. We had Rage Against the Machine on that year. It was the same. It was a lot of fun. Because he was very blue, and we had advertisers in the audience, and we had cable operators, and they were not very happy about that. So I was fired, and a couple of days later, HBO called me, and HBO had a management contract with Steve, and what Movie Time, and asked me if I'd be interested in a CEO job. All of a sudden now this job looked really unappealing. A few months earlier was, my wife was pregnant, I was out of work, I saved no money. I moved to LA and I took that job. And we'd done a lot of research. It was going to be called entertainment television. It always was. And we had a fun marketing story. We'd done a little bit of research. Remember this, Dale? We'd done this research. Is it going to be E-N-T, baby, or E-T? And we did all this research. And it came back, and it was like a third. So we couldn't figure out which way to go, and we figured, well, we'll go with ETV because people associate with MTV, and it'll skew younger and not be a good thing. So the people that we hired from HBO to do promotion hired a graphics company. They'd done all this work. They were going to show me the logo and the design. I hadn't moved to LA, and I was living in Westport, Connecticut. They came up and they're showing me, they've got the storyboards all around my living room with sheets of paper over it so I couldn't see the logo. And here's the logo. And they flipped the sheet of paper over, and it said, you've seen the logo, the E in the exclamation point. Now remember, it's supposed to be ETV. And I'm sitting there, I said, where's the TV? That we didn't think that was necessary. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. We spent all this money on the research. We decide we're gonna do this. We're gonna call it ETV. And the design company was telling us, no, we're not gonna do that. We ended up doing it, and it became distinctive. It was the first network with one letter, and it kind of stood out, and it worked.
Yeah, and become a $1 billion company.
Yeah, we made little money on that one.
You access, and you have access to a lot of upside, right?
I'm sorry?
You access, like when they sold the
Oh,
company?
yeah, I think we had valued at like 35 million when we started, so we called it a good upside. That was a good return.
And when you're working as E, you also started art collecting around that time, early 90s?
Yes, I started at E in 1990, and then I tell the story, and I get asked this a lot in interviews with art magazines and such, what prompted me to start collecting art? And the true story is we had this house, and it had a lot of walls, and my wife said to me, we should start collecting art. We need to collect some art because we have all these empty walls. To which I said, collecting art, that is a hard thing. No. She said, well, I said, the entire art world is designed to take advantage of idiots like us. I don't want anything about art. They're going to see me coming. I'm going to have my clock cleaned. I'm going to, they're going to rip us off. And she said, no, we really need to get some art for the wall. So I started looking at, visited a friend when I came to New York. We started walking around Chelsea and started collecting art. And that was probably 33 years ago.
Is that at the very beginning you already fall in love with like minimalist art from 60s and 70s, or?
That came a little later. I think like a lot of people, for those of you some of you that probably collect art or think you have collecting art, you go through a phase, and when people ask my opinion about how to begin collecting art, I always warn them, and no one pays any attention to my advice on this or anything, as a matter of fact. So I'm kind of used to that. But I always tell people, go see a lot of art. Expose yourself to a lot of things. Don't try to make fast decisions. The things that you're going to probably like initially are not going to be the things that you like maybe later on. It takes a while to develop your taste. And because of my background as in music, the analogy I always use, pop music, that song is instantly likable that you really love and you can't get enough of, tends often not to wear it very well. And after you hear it on the radio ad nauseum, you lose interest in some music that's more complex that you may not get or understand at first. But upon listening to a number of times, you start to hear the layers to it and more nuance, and I think art is very much the same. And so my first 8-9 years of collecting art, I actually didn't buy that much really bad stuff. It's not stuff that, I collect now because I wanted to collect stuff that had a theme to a thread, but the very first one I bought were 3 Larry Clark photographs of junkies from Tulsa, Oklahoma shooting up. So it was pretty dark, and in fact the artist, Larry Clark, called the gallery and said, this time is really kind of twisted this time. These are your works, not mine. But it took me a while. I read a lot. I was reading a lot about collecting art, and I really believed I needed ultimately to have a thread or a through line on what I wanted. And I wasn't initially interested in minimalism or like in space, but I developed a taste for it ultimately. And I went to, at the time, it was Warner Worth Gallery on the Upper East Side at the time. There's John McCracken show, stainless steel works, and I flipped over it and I bought one. I had never spent that much money on the work of art. For like 3 months before it got installed, I had buyer's remorse. Like, what goes that thinking? It's like, it was 2 times more expensive than any ever bought. And I bought it like a pack of gum at 7-Eleven. It was just like, and it's sort of like, and I figured, how can I get out of this deal? The worst thing in galleries is that when somebody buys something and then they call you back later, it's like, I changed my mind. It's really bad form. And I figured, I'll be too embarrassed to call the gallery. So and they delivered the piece 3 months later, got it and sold. And when it was put in my backyard, I just went, my God, this is it. This is what I want to collect. and everything, came from the Mary Horse.
So that's the first piece into minimalist art. Wow. So it's 1999, end of 1999. And also the land artist Michael Heiser, and his work is not historic site specific. You cannot just collect it and hang it on your wall. What's your experience to hang it?
Well, the Michael Heiser I have is a 3.5-ton boulder called Scoria of red lava that we had to remove an exterior wall from the house. It took a couple months. We had to reframe it in steel, take down 4 feet, put an industrial rebar in concrete, close my street off for 3 hours, crane the work over the wall, wheel it into place, bolt it into the concrete, and drywalls around it. And it's not going right. It's the only.
Can I say that?
No, it's the only Michael Heiser boulder inside a residence in the world. There are a number outside, and they're in museums, hotels. If you go to Dia Beacon, you're going to see a wonderful example of a Heiser in a wall. That was the first one I saw. But that's more recent about. That was just something I put it a couple of years ago because I was involved with LA County Museum of Art and the installation of levitated mass, which is 350-ton boulder, which they have mounted there.
And you were one of the first to support that project, right? Even though there's many other donors as well.
Yeah, it was Michael Heiser, for those of you who know the work, designed this work of art, which is at LA County Museum of Art, called the Levitated Mass. If you can imagine, it is a 350-ton boulder. And he conceived this in 1967, I think, 67 or 68. And I was in Berlin a number of years ago. I saw the original sketch that he had done. And he had a vision of what this boulder would look like. And what he did was he sent images of this sketch to quarries all over the Western United States. Said, if you ever get a boulder like this, let me know. This is 1967. So fast forward 40 years, a quarry in Riverside calls him up and said, hey, we just blew up the side of a mountain, and this big boulder came down, and it kind of looks like that thing he sketched. Do you want to come and take a look at it? So Heiser flies down, goes to Riverside, looks at the boulder, and says, this is it. This is exactly what I'm looking for 40 years. So he calls Mike Coco, who's the director of LA County Museum of Art, and a good friend, and he said, they told me we have 45 days to buy this, and if we don't buy it in 45 days, they're going to blow it up and turn it into gravel. And so Michael Heiser, there's a great documentary on this if you have any interest on Netflix called Levitating Mass. It's a great piece. Michael Gubman says, who would be insane enough to buy that for us? I think I'll call Jarl. So he called me, and it was really interesting because I said, well, how much is a 350-ton boulder? Essentially, the least expensive part of the project. I said, how much is it? He said, $75,000. I said, you're kidding me. He said, 75 grand? That's it? He goes, that's it. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll buy it for you. He said, no, wait a minute, the project's going to cost a lot more money. I said, well, how much more? He goes, well, we figure with all the engineering and moving the mark and everything, it's going to cost $5 million. And I said, I ain't doing that. I said, but I'll tell you what, I'll buy the boulder for you. And then the museum will be pregnant, and you're going to have to move forward with the project, but I'm not paying for it. So he said, okay, no problem. Then he called me 2 weeks later, and he said, you're going to kill me. I said, what? He goes, I need more money. I said, why? He said, well, that I need more money. I said, did they raise the price? He goes, no, we own the rock. We own the boulder. Oh, we have to weigh it. I said, well, how much did that possibly cost to weigh a rock? He goes, well, there's no device that exists that can weigh this. They have to make one with 2 cranes and a leather strap. It's really complicated. I said, well, how much is it? He goes, $85,000. I said, I'll make you a deal. And Ben Mohn was dealing with museums. He said, and those of you that deal with museums and know how good they can be fundraising. I said, make the deal. I'll give you the $85,000, but you have to promise me you won't call me for 2 years. And he said, okay. And the $5 million turned into $7 million, and the $7 million turned into $10 million. But the project got done, and it's remarkable. It's a beautiful work of art. But when I went to Michael Eisner's city in the middle of Nevada to meet the artist and talk about this project, outside his studio was this 1-story piece, beautiful red rock, 3/4 tons that I ended up ultimately acquiring for the house.
Thank you. Another very specific art that Jim Terrell designed for your wonderful kind of world. I wonder why you come up with the idea work with him for a screening room, like a home theater, instead of a meditation room or internal courtyard. It's more like his philosophy, I feel like.
Well, first, James Terrell is an artist represented by this one gallery, Pace Gallery, as is, Bob Irwin. Those two are, the luminaries of light and space, along with the Mary Corse, Peter Alexander, and a number of others. But I was actually building a screening room independent because I love film, and I was doing a screening room at my house, and someone from the gallery came by and just said, what do you think about having James Terrell do the screening room? And I was like, wow, what a great idea. It's all about projected lighting. It makes perfect sense. So much like that John McClintock's stainless steel thing, which was an impulse buy at 7-Eleven, my decision to buy or have James Terrell do the screening room was almost the same. Decided on the stock.
Is there any difficult decisions or compromise? Because I am still a pioneer artist will stick with what we want to express. Is there balance between function and?
It's a great question. No one's ever asked me that, but yes, there was one, and that is if you can imagine the CinemaScope screening room, where you have a 16-foot by 9-foot screen, the standard CinemaScope screen. In most movie theaters, you may not even notice it. Most people don't. But there are black maskings at the top of the screen and on the sides. And that is because it is impossible for the projectionists to get an image perfectly centered on the screen. There's always a bleedo. They want it to actually go over, not under. If it was under the rectangle, you'd see white sticks. So the image overshoots the screen a little bit, and that's why anytime you go to a movie theater, you will see black maxi to basically absorb the lighter, the color from the film. And so Terrell, this beautiful screen that we had, has coating around it with beautiful light, this LED light, but there was no way to get an image perfectly centered on that. So we had engineers design this contraption where when it's not being used as a James Terrell style space, when it's being used for film, black maskings come down from the top, the bottom, and the sides, so we can use it as a screen. James Terrell is not like that. But I said, when it's a space, it'll be pure. But when it's a movie theater, I have to make sure. Oh, the other thing we had too, he kind of was okay. If you've ever been to any Terrell's rooms, they're very monastic. He's Quaker, and it's all about meeting the light and being in a very contemplative space, and they're beautiful. Irwin's work, Mary Corse's work, but most of the rooms have either stone benches or wooden benches, okay? And they're aesthetic, beautiful, and minimal. But I said, Kent, I'm going to be showing international movies. I need to be showing documentaries. going to be showing experimental films. I don't want my friends sitting on stone benches for 2 hours. So we had to have comfortable seats, and we went back and forth, back and forth. The room was done. He said he wanted to design everything. He wanted to design the seating too. Now the room is done, no chairs. I have nothing in the room, it's empty. We're sitting on beanbags from IKEA in this very expensive group, $29 beanbags to watch movies. And I found a cinema seating company in Germany, and they could do custom seating. And I said, I'll give you the specs, can you skin them? And he came up with a design. He refurbishes old aircraft. So he designed the seats to look like the seats from an old DC-3. And we sent them to the cinema seating company in Germany. They produced it. And so those were our two clashes. It worked out.
It's beautiful. And so back to your career, in 1998, you become the CEO of, you joined media giant John Mohn, Liberty Media. So I find it very amusing on the company's Wikipedia page. I don't know if you know this, Liberty Media's Wikipedia page. I was looking for you. So they mentioned the new core Liberty Digital's CEO is a former E-Entertainment CEO, MisAdventures, which is actually your alter ego you created for your on-air personality. Did you still go by this name when you were in Baby?
Did I go by this?
You still go by this name? That's why they
Well, it was at that point, I think I did. I do know the moment that I switched. My nom de guerre in radio was Lee Masters. That's when I was a disc jockey here in New York. And because my name, Jarl Mohn, well, I like a lot. It's not easy to remember. It's not easy to say. It's not easy to sell. And I wanted something. Remember, I was starting this. I was thinking about this very strategically when I was 12. It's like, Jarl Mohn is a really shitty airname. So you need to come up with something cool and that sounds big and dynamic. So my little fertile 13-year-old brain kept coming up with names, and I created Lee Masters, which I used for years. And then when I got into management, because I was in the radio business, people knew me as Lee Masters. I kept it. I got into the cable television business through MTV. We're still the people in the music industry. They knew me as Lee Masters, kept the name. People in the cable industry knew me as Lee Masters, so I kept the name. And I stayed with it, just because there's too much of a rebranding effort. But I remember the very first public company I went on, when I started being invited to be on public companies. It's a little embarrassing. That was the subprime mortgage lending company of all things. Do you imagine? I know nothing about that business, but they put me on board. And I remember proxy statement being issued, by the company, and they have the bio was all the directors, and it said Lee Masters, also known as Jarl Mohn. And I said, damn, it's not a good look for an English trade company. And because my plan was to do more board seats on public companies, which I did it for years, I decided I need to go back to my legal name. And so Lee Masters disappeared.
It's still on Wikipedia. It's still on Wikipedia page.
It's still on the wiki.
For Liberty Media.
On Liberty? That's so funny. Well, I never told that. It's harder for them to track me down as well.
So when you were at Liberty Digital, what kind of company you investing in terms of maturity? Is that startups or partly company or a mixed widest actual?
We ultimately got into investing in startups, and that's how we got into the venture capital. Again, a lot of the things that happened in my career were by accident. Liberty Media was a shareholder in E. They owned 9% of E. And when Dale and I were working there together, I was there for 9 years. The last year or two, I was bored out of my trade. I get very dangerous when I get newer. And so I was looking for things to do. And Liberty knew that. And so they could come to me with a number of interesting opportunities. but they just didn't seem like the right fit for me. And they created this idea of Liberty Digital, and at the time, there were going to be interactive set-top boxes, and they wanted me to create 12, 24-hour-a-day, fully interactive, basically shopping networks on these new set-top boxes. The irony is, that was 1999. Today, 2024, that set-top box still does not exist for whatever reason. So we were there, and after the first few months, I realized, I can design all these channels, but we don't have the interactivity. So what good is it going to do? We got to do something. So they gave us some money, like $50 million, to go invest in that internet. And we had this wonderful opportunity because of Liberty Media's reputation, certainly online, carriers, of being great investors, where companies pre-IPO would come to us and say, would you only put some money in, and having your name on the cover of this IPO would be helpful. So we had the opportunity to invest in a lot of really interesting companies early on. I have zero investment experience, zero. And now I'm working at Liberty Digital, and we're investing in companies to putting them public. I put together a staff of really terrific business development people, and mostly out strategic consulting. And they were looking at deals coming to me with the recommendations. And the very first one we did is Priceline.com. And the second one we did was TiVo. And it was, as they say, it worked out. And it gave me a taste for venture capital. So when I left Liberty, for 13 years, I just invested in very early stage companies for myself. And I love doing it.
So when you were in Liberty Digital, it's more like a pre-IPO. It's already very mature company, right?
Yeah, almost everything we pre-IPO.
Always.
And then when I was doing my own venture, it was all very, very early stage.
Why is that? You like the thrill of high risk or the power of more dangerous people like you, it's early stage?
I'd always likened it to, the problem with venture capital. I don't know exactly what the number is today, but when I started doing venture, the amount of time from the first check to the liquidity in that was 7 years. The last I heard about 11 or 12 years. And to me, it's like, when you go to Vegas, end of the night, and when you go to your hotel room, if they haven't turned you out, that whether you're up or down for the day. And in venture capital, you just don't know, and you might not know them for 12 years. But it's still a thrill. And we had a kick on it and had a great ride. We had some big winners. When on my own account, I was an angel investor in StubHub. I was an investor in those of you who are gamers, little Riot games, League of Legends, which is one of the biggest in the world now.
You were sold it to Tencent.
I'm sorry?
Sold it to Tencent.
Yeah, Tencent. Yeah, Tencent bought it from us. And that's a whole other story. That's an investment I didn't want to make. I was going to nose into it. The two founders were sons of friends of mine. And I kept saying, I'm not going to invest in it. I don't know the game business. I don't know anything about it. It's too competitive. I don't like businesses where you have to come out of the box, success right away. Like the movie, if you don't open one Friday night with a hit, you're screwed. And similarly, at television, it's very hard to build any momentum. People don't give you a chance. Most of the businesses I've built, it's been fail. And then you get a little traction, and then things grow. And so the game business, video game business, I did not like the idea. I think, you can't really iterate, and you got a success right away. So I kept passing and said, no. And they finally said, would you be at the parties of the company? And I said, sure, just to kind of get them off my back. And then, of course, they were shopping this deal to all of, their parents' friends, and their parents' friends saw my name on the book as an advisor, so everybody's telling me, how much money are you put? And I couldn't bring myself to say nothing. It was stuck people awful. I'm an advisor, but I'm not going to invest any money in them. So I put a little money in just because I thought that was the right thing to do. It was the best single investment I've ever made in my life. It was unbelievable. It was a month. So it's
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. 2 years ago, in an interview about your business, and you mentioned you have this great idea and or still a huge opportunity. I think it's related to Los Angeles or not, but you didn't pursue it because you were not passionate about it. Can you share with us? Maybe we can steal it.
You can. I'm going to give you the idea. In fact, there are a couple of people in the room were advising about this idea. Neil from BCG is here. Neil, raise your hand. Neil, by the way, Zuckerman is a longtime friend, a strategic consultant with Boston Consulting Group, media and entertainment, and was on the board of NPR with me for a long time. And I talked to him about this idea. And is Sarah here? I don't know if Sarah is here. She did luxury for BCG, and I talked to her. And Christiane's here, works with Condé Nast. She's an expert on all things fashion. And I ran this idea by them. And everybody, normally when people run an idea by me, and people always say, come to me, I've got an idea for a cable network. And I go, I don't even need to hear the idea. It's a terrible idea. It will never work. Don't do it. The business has changed. You don't even know what it's about. I said, I don't need to know what it's about. But it's about kitties. It's got kitties and puppies. You just can't start a new cable network. This idea was the fashion idea. LA is the fashion community, and the idea was basically providing a common infrastructure, giving money, investing in designers that really seemed like they had a lot of potential, but instead of encumbering them with sourcing material, manufacturing, running their online web services, fulfillment, all of that stuff, providing common services for them in exchange for an investment and investing in them and an ownership of this. And I talked to a number of designers that were really interested, and a lot of people seemed interested, and they went, man, that seems like a lot of work. I'm too old for this shit. So I passed.
Thank you. We'll talk about something that you're passionate about. So after you focus on minimalist art as space and light movements, so 15 years ago, you and Penn, your wife, started focus on emerging artists in Los Angeles. Could you share more excitement there?
Well, LA is a really exciting city. I happen to think it is the most creative city on the planet right now. Various locations have their really big moment in the sun. It's not to indicate that there's not great creative things happening anywhere or everywhere. There are. Many metropolitan areas have their moment. New York really was the place in the 50s and the 60s and 70s with abstract expression. Paris, turn of the century, Picasso. There were moments when, London was just right high, UK, with the young British artists. You need to go back to the Renaissance and Florence as a creative capital. I think it's Los Angeles today. I really do. And we won't know. That's just my thesis today. We'll know in 50 or 100 years when the historians write about it. But that's why I wanted to start collecting art. So very early stage emerging artists and under-recognized artists I associated with the Hammer Museum. They started to make in LA, Monennial, and I underwrite that, and we gave some awards, the Mohn Awards. And it's just taken on a life of its own, and the most recent thing, which Ben mentioned, we just created an unprecedented joint venture. It's never been done before, with 3 museums in one city. LA County Museum of Art, MoCA, Timothy Temper up in the Hammer. I've gifted 260 works, and then Hammer's putting 80 works, and those works will be shared amongst all the museums. They'll each have an equal ownership in each of the works, and we're creating an endowment to cover the costs of storage and conservation, and we'll be adding 10 to 15 new works every year to the collection, selected not by me, but by the curatorial teams of all three museums working together. So not only is LA, I think, a creative catalyst, we have this really unusual situation where it's a very collaborative and collegial and commuter. And so this IP really came together easily. It's probably the most ambitious thing I've done, and it was maybe one of the easiest things.
So beautiful, because it's not only about, like I said, a good model for institutional partnership, but also you set a model for art philanthropy. You plant those seeds and design the mechanism how it will grow, how it can be more scalable and impactful and caring for it. So make museum also, right? It's really caring because you can just donate. You can do it through asset cleaning, and you really care for it, how they will take care of this. And you also give funding as part of the endowment. I think will give funding for institutions that doesn't have the means to borrow and to show those. So you will help them with finance. This is just very scalable. I think. I hope this can be copied beyond the boundary of art communities.
Well, thank you. I hope so too. It's a very unusual that the spirit of collaboration is there. But we're hoping, I do think particularly not-for-profit organizations need to be thinking more about collaboration because they're a resource. I'm sure many of you are involved in not-for-profits, whether you're giving money, whether you're giving time. But most not-for-profits are really, even the most successful ones, are resource constrained. And so if they can collaborate with others and work together to do joint ventures instead of, kind of fighting for resources, I think really good things can happen. So I'm excited. We'll see what happens. For right now, everybody is, we're having cum laude.
Is that also because of this kind of a passion for the spirit of collaboration you went back to NPR? Almost after your retirement, you went back?
Yeah, well, it was, I've always loved public radio. I was involved in public radio in Los Angeles at a radio station there, KPCC, and was on the board for years and was chair of the board. And so I had some former colleagues from NPR. Emma Carrasco was Chief Marketing Officer when I started there, and she's now with NBC Universal, and Isabel Lara. Raise your hand, Isabel. She is still at NPR. She's the head of communications there. We had a great run together. But I was involved in public radio in Los Angeles, and I had the opportunity. I wasn't working. I didn't want to work. I'm basically a lazy guy, but I really love NPR and I really love public radio, and so it was an honor for me that to be given the chance to work with this great group of people, not just the journalists, but the whole organization and member stations across the country. And I learned a lot. I learned an awful lot there. It was a very rewarding experience.
Thank you. About your legacy building, now you give this one pillar of your art collection, which is the contemporary art collection to museums. And you also mentioned you might sell your minimalist, deep holding of minimalist art. Is that because your daughter isn't into it?
No. I have these two collections. Ben is very interested in the answer to this question. We've already committed one piece at some point for Ben to sell. The emerging art, we thought there was a really important thing that we could be doing for our community. The minimalist collection has turned out to be way more valuable than I ever expected. I never bought the art. I never had purchased art as an investment. I know many people do. I don't. I've not sold work. I just like to have it and share it with other people. But the emerging LA work, there was a great community project, which is this joint venture. But the minimal collection ended up being way more valuable than I expected. And so as an asset, my plan ultimately is to sell that, and that would fund our other philanthropic efforts for foster youth, for public radio, for literacy, and for social justice. Those are the pillars of the things we want to support.
Then you also my question about philanthropy. I think this is your action of what does philanthropy mean to you. Sell your most valuable assets to fund it.
Yeah, and it's there's symmetry. But I also believe, and one of the reasons we've been doing what we're doing, I like the idea of giving. I mean, you may have heard the phrase "giving with warm hands." I just don't think the joy of waiting till you pass to give money to an organization is, at least for me, not that I want to be prescriptive to anybody else, but the joy of being able to give and see the benefit of the gift to other organizations is great. And getting I have 2 adult daughters, and they're really involved in philanthropy now. My oldest one's on the board of the Institute of Contemporary Art. That are both on the Every Child Foundation. They really are embracing philanthropy as well. And so the idea is to provide the funds so that they too can continue, supporting things that are happening in Los Angeles County that mean something to our family.
Thank you, very beautiful. And you always mentioned how grateful you are for all the helpers along your journey. So after, thank you for sharing with us your adventures, and what's the gift you bring back after your hero's journey? What's that like, sir, that you can share with the world, you want to share with the world?
There's no hero's journey here, I gotta assure you. Anti-hero maybe is more appropriate. But I would think you were talking about people that have helped me along the way. I've been the beneficiary of a couple of things. I've been really lucky, and I don't understand why or how, that I've been given opportunities along the way, many of which I kind of wasn't qualified for at the time when we kind of grew into them.
No, you were delusional. So you always
And I convinced people that my delusion was correct. I always told people my career was always taking jobs at places that were in worse shape than I was. They were more desperate than I was. It's not a bad strategy. So I was given many great opportunities to do things along the way, but I also had the opportunity to work with some amazing people, like the people I envisioned here, who made these things happen, like Dale and Emma, and Isabel and Neil. These folks really were on the ground making things happen. So I had a lot of help with the people I worked with, and I have an incredible amount of help from people that gave me opportunities. And that's what I'm most sure.
Thank you. We're open to questions from the audience.
Yes.
Do we have extra? Later.
Hi there, my name's Susan. Thanks for the presentation and questions. So you've really been part of the cultural zeitgeist. So I'm curious about that in terms of your own journey, and then you reflect on it. How can you imagine the things that you sort of touched turn to gold, the antithesis of the Medusa? And then also, I wonder, did you ever have imposter syndrome when you speak about the delusion? Or maybe not, and your leadership characteristics, clearly we've heard about humor, humility, creativity, curiosity, etc.
I have many feelings for which to be humble about. Imposter syndrome. I think I have the opposite kind of imposters. You read about imposter syndrome. I actually think I'm capable of doing great stuff, and I think I'm lazy, and I think I do 15% of what I'm capable of. So I think I have kind of the opposite. I don't know if there was another question in there. Like when you're in the middle of these things and you're doing them, I don't think I ever realized, you don't realize, I don't know if I would call it importance or the import or maybe the size or the impact that they'd set until late. One is just so concerned with making payable or solving the crisis du jour. At NPR, we always said the crisis du jour. I always say to these two, every morning we walked into my office, and 20 minutes after I was sitting in my chair, someone would roll a hand grenade into my office. And I'd go, oh my God, it's another hand grenade. And I have to throw myself on top of it before it destroyed the building. And then I'd spend the entire day cleaning up the mess, and I never got to my to-do list. So I have found, whether it's MTV or VH1 or E or NPR, any of these things, at the moment I'm working on these things, I'm so overwhelmed by the challenges of the moment, I'm not even thinking about the side base to the cultural impact or the importance of and none of that. Later, I think back on, oh yeah, that was great. That was great. So it's a lot more fun looking back on it than it was doing. We should power fix.
Okay. That.
We'll get front row. Let's start here and then we'll go back.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Fanyu. Also, it's a great decision after more inspiring initiatives. Thank you very much. My name is Christian. 2018, graduated 2018, and now I work at JP Morgan. My question goes, I have two questions. Things that your passion is mostly focused on contemporary art, combining that with media and how fast whole worlds that advance in contemporary art and media, digital. Do you see both worlds influencing each other, and so in which way? And the second question will be on what has caught your interest on all the art eras? I don't know, Roman.
Where's the second question?
Why do you have not been so interested in other eras of art? Romanticism, Impressionism, Baroque, so on, so good.
Well, why have I not been I do like going to see other types of art, but contemporary art really speaks to me. It just happens to be the passion that, I developed. I don't think there was any thinking or any active decision making. It's just what I gravitated to. And the other question, the first one was any common themes between the business side and the creative side. Did I get the question right?
Both worlds influence each other.
Both worlds influence. One of the reasons I like dealing when I was doing venture with startup CEOs, and one of the reasons I like dealing with artists, even though the way they look at the world is completely different. The common thread is new ways of looking at business, new ways of looking at art. And I would say, just in terms of another common thread, one of the biggest problems I saw with startup CEOs, and I had the same lesson maybe with artists as well, when I'm asked, I try never to give advice, but when I'm asked for my observations, it's that I find highly creative people, highly intelligent people are fascinated by everything and have a lot of ideas, and you can't pursue them all. And it doesn't mean that one idea is better than another, but as an intelligent person, as a creative person, as a person wanting to try new things, you have to zero in and focus on a small number. If you attempt to do 10 things, you will fail. You have to take a small handful. And that's a theme I see between startup CEOs and artists. They hate my advice. Now come back to you, sorry.
Thanks, Jarl, and thanks, Fanyu. Since you've seen the whole evolution from radio to, entertainment, I just wonder what you see the future of the team. Is it a format of immersive entertainment experience? Is it something on the Web3, augmented reality? Like, What do you think is the future of the entertainment?
I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. There is only one thread that I think is really important. Because I'm a fan, I've never worked in scripted television or film, but I enjoy it and love it. And I think, in literature, I think ultimately, I'm not concerned about AI, forcing its way into the creative space, because I think there might be a lot of derivative okay art, like, maybe kind of pop music I referred to before that doesn't have any necessary complexity to it. But I think ultimately, I think we as human beings are incredibly creative. And I think not just in what we make, but in the way we interact with each other. And anybody that's ever done any selling, you can automate a lot of sales processes. But I think great sales always occurs one-on-one, face-to-face. And I don't think that can be replicated. I don't think the creation of narrative is going to be done by AI. So whatever the future is, whatever the technology is, whatever the medium for delivering it is going to be, I think at its essence, it's going to be the work of human beings and not AI. Microphone is under your
who are travelers. Thank you, Mr. Mohn, for this conference. Really interesting insight from art and so the world of contributor. So you were saying earlier about the fact that you think that it is going to be the next sport of ours in the next couple of years. So we made a sort of like a comparison with Horizon, and I simplified about the releases. So, like in French, we just got them like mécène, basically, which is, I think, a bit related to what venture capital people are doing at the same time, like investing into arts, which is typically about a big topics in this kind of area to me. And I'm wondering if you have this kind of dynasty of people that's like similar to the Medicis could live there, and we could you can expect that this kind of families to buy a lot of arts and therefore to grow the business over there in some ways. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand the question. The Medicis buy a lot of art?
Something about something similar, like families similar to the Medicis in LA, if they will exist.
I'm not sure I understand. Hatred.
Oh, the students. Yes. Was worth the creative endeavors and to see.
Great, thank you. Up here, I'm getting echo off the wall, so it's hard for me to hear that. That's unknown at this time. I mean, it's a huge city. It is not a city of collectors like New York, or like many European capitals. I mean, the creativity is there. The work is being made there. So many major galleries from New York have moved to create offices and galleries in Los Angeles. Pace has an absolutely beautiful gallery in Los Angeles. And so the work that's on display there is fantastic. Are there enough patrons in Los Angeles to support that? I hope so. I don't know. I just don't know. But time will tell. It's kind of tough. Right now, the art market is going through a bit of a downturn. So I think it's going to be tough for a lot of galleries, and a lot have opened up in LA in the last year or two. But I don't know. I'm hopeful, just because I think the work is so great. And it's wonderful to have New York galleries or galleries coming in from other places in the world to be able to show art in Los Angeles that might not have been, not just for LA artists, but for the entire community. Wow, good point. Good.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. My question is similar to venture capital investing. You give us an example how your very successful investment took place.
I think I'm wondering when you can share with us your, how do you select among all the emerging artists? You focus on that. Actually, there's so many creative artists in LA.
How do I select the emerging artists?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it helps, as I mentioned earlier, just to look at a lot of work. I don't think there's any magic to anything, and I think in many ways it's kind of like venture capital. One of the reasons I've never seen art as an investment opportunity, although it's turned out that the minimal collection turned out to be all. That wasn't the reason I did it. I did it because I love the word. But with the emerging, same thing. The intention is never to sell, is to create a collection. And some of them have gone on to be wildly successful. Lauren Halsey, who was in our Maze in LA, did the rooftop garden at the Met. She's just opened the Serpentine Gallery in London, and she's a superstar in a handful of years. So when I look at art, it's a matter of just looking at a lot, looking for things different, get something that looks different. There are some galleries, I think, that do a wonderful job of identifying talent early and know how to develop that talent. And I talk to a lot of artists, and I talk to probably more than anything, the most knowledgeable people I talk to are those that work at museums. Far more educated, better educated than I am on this. Look at a lot, have a much more informed point of view. So it's just looking at a lot and talking to a lot of people and asking questions and a fair amount of intuition as well.
What did we have to say?
Sorry, but you will have a networking time. She'll talk to you and
Networking, don't try to sell me. I can snap.
Thank you. I have to say thank you for being and a quite incredible team at Pace, and thank you, of course, for your wisdom and humor and humility. And thanks to our volunteers and our team at our club. Thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanyu.
Looking at things when you play and read the Bible. But the border company of Tencent. So here, thank you. So that's for that. And what do you not know what's like? I feel like who's a bit there. One ask me about check everything. I did to see you again, yes. Yeah. How's life been?
Yeah, I feel peaceful. I'm really getting right in like this. Yeah, I'm just it was now. That's me. That's the good now.
Let's head at those days. He told me you're going to be the best one in the world now, right? Yeah.
Let's get that. Really people should pass the day. They were in the day. We were taking audio.
So we're in there, right? Yes. Yeah. Please. All people have friends. Live for the sugar around and that. Oh, I think they put it sad. And it's very hard to remember, right? Yes. The middle. I see very elegant now rushing towards the streets.
Yeah.
And like the